Hi, everybody. My name is Dale Parker. We're here with CROPA Media. We're presenting our second installment of our Bank on Your Success workshop, Banking and Budgeting Basics. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm pleasantly joined here with Miss Lydia Fillet of Truist. Hi, Lydia. How are you today?
Hey Dale, I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully. I'm ready to get started. We're going to be talking to everybody about banking and budgeting basics. This is the second part of the series. Stay tuned for each part as they drop.
All right. Thank you for that introduction, Dale. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to share financial information with all those watching. It's just a matter of knowing. So let's get started. We're going to be talking about determining your financial situation. That includes what you spend your money on, how much you earn each month, how much disposable income you have, what your financial priorities are, and setting goals. Okay. So we'll begin by focusing on what you spend your money on and how you track it. Examples, when you think about how you track your money, we've heard a few different answers, and I'll kind of quickly review the three that we hear the most. First of those, well, I kind of know where I spend my money. I look at my checking account every day to see what my balance is, but sometimes I'm not aware of when a check or a debit transaction clears. So I'm really not that great at it. Second, we hear, I figure what I don't know won't hurt me. I used to track my spending and I was all stressed out all the time. So now I just don't worry about it. Third, we hear is I balance my accounts to the penny. It takes a few minutes a day to download and categorize my transactions. That way I know where I stand every morning before I leave for work. Now you can only imagine which one of those would be the best scenario for how to track your money. But I'll let you make that decision for yourself. Okay. So now we're going to focus on gathering the data. The tracking your expenses worksheet that Dale has, he'll pull up right now for me. It's a great tool we're going to use to get started. It is important to track your expenses for a few months. So you got to go back so that you understand your buying habits. Using automated options that link your accounts is easier and less time consuming. But you must remain vigilant no matter which type of tracking method you decide to use. Okay. So we talked a little bit about, Dale, how do you track your expenses?
I have accounting software that links to my bank account, and mostly everything I do is through my credit card, debit card. So all of those kind of things kind of filter right into my accounting. So I can sit down once a week. I usually sit down and look at where I am, what I've got coming up, and look for where I'm saving money.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Those are great tips. Great. There's accounting software that's available. There's other apps that are out there that can really help you budget and really help you know where it's all going. So if we take a look at this tracking your expenses, one thing we want to do is really lay it all down. Like you cannot fix what you don't know or what you don't acknowledge. So one of the first categories is personal and family. So is there childcare? Is there babysitting? Do your children get an allowance? I didn't. But if they do, you gotta put that in your budget, you know. Is there child support? Clothing and shoes, you know, food, clothing, shelter, and transportation are for needs. Do you have laundry expenses? You gotta get washing powder.
Right.
Detergent, all those good things. That's an expense. Do you give? Do you have donations that you give regularly? Entertainment. We think about Netflix and chilling and Hulu and Paramount and Peacock and Disney Plus and all the subscriptions that are out. We have to track all of those things. Our next category on this tracking sheet is food. Okay. We have to eat food, clothing, shelter, transportation. We have to eat, but we do need to know how much we spend on groceries and household supplies and how much we spend eating out. I will tell you, for most people, when they go back about 3 months and they calculate all the money they spent eating out, it really is an eye opener for most people. It was for me when I actually did this exercise for myself. I had to really find out where my money was going. And I quickly found out food was one of the things that was eating my money. Another thing, so that's our second category. Our third category we want to look at is our debt payments, okay? So our auto loans, credit cards, if we have department store cards, we want to look at those. If we have a student loan, we want to look at that. If we have a personal loan, we want to look at that. Like, we really need to know and dig into all of these things. What do we have going on? Okay. So that's our debt payments. And that's, think of everything, lay it all down, lay it all out on the line so you know exactly what you're working with. So the next category is our household expenses. So that's your living expenses, your shelter, food, clothing, shelter. That's number 3 on the list. So your rent or mortgage. If you have a home equity loan on your mortgage, you have to track that. If you have it, something outstanding on there, you have to track that information, right? So your property taxes, Uncle Sam want a piece of all that. Uncle Sam is like, okay, yeah, it's yours as long as you make the tax payment. That's just good old Uncle Sam for us, right? He always want a little piece of all of that, right? So we want to make sure we have all that accounted for. Our insurance, gotta have insurance, homeowners insurance, because anything could happen. If you have HOA or homeowners association dues, gotta track those. What your gas bill look like, your electric, your water, your trash, your telephone and cell phone bill, maintenance. Those things, hot water heaters fall apart all the time. The stoves, refrigerators, they fall apart all the time. Cable, if you still have cable, or how much you're paying for internet service, and other things. So that's just a small grouping. I would add, if you have hobbies, I would include the money you spend in hobbies. If you have any other interests out there, or if there's anything else you spend money on, haircuts, or maybe not.
For some of us.
Whatever you do to stay, clean and trim, add that, because all of that is really coming out of your bottom line. So whatever it is that you are spending, and take 3 months of your transaction history to really, with a fine-tooth comb, with Sherlock Holmes eyes, Inspector Gadget eyes, really piece out and categorize every dime that you are spending so you can get a real full picture of what's going on with your finances. Okay.
A lot of times you might not be able to think of, especially infrequent payments.
Mm-hmm.
So you have, by having that list there, it's at least a good starting place it pretty much all the categories. I know everybody is maybe have something different here or there, but that's a good place to get started, to see, kind of look at what all your expenses are, what all of them are. Doing that makes you be honest with yourself.
Amen. Sure does.
Because like you said, don't look at it like it's going to go away. But I've found in my travels that never works. It doesn't go away. It's still there, and probably getting worse by not dealing with it. That's an excellent starting place. We'll have more information about how you can go about, because you can do a Google search and you'll find these kind of worksheets out there. So if you're interested in that, please just do a Google for a budget worksheet, personal budget worksheet. You'll find plenty of examples out there. I was going to say the food, that's one that we're not honest about. That's one of the categories.
That's the
right.
If you're like me and you're on the road a lot and you're running around, and just quickly grab something, and you just don't bring that trash in the house. You throw that out.
Right. Right.
Accountability part that we, sometimes avoid because that's extra.
Right. I mean, everybody needs to do this exercise and to live by, because it becomes a roadmap. And so like, as you want to do other things, you can see where you can move money from, or at least cut back on expenses. There are things you can do to get the things that you want. Might take a little while, but that's at least you can see it. Because part of like, you can want something, a new car, and it's just in your mind. But when you combine that with this budget worksheet and being able to see in the future that that can be a reality, I can cut back here instead of eating out 6 times a week,
Oh,
you know, instead of eating out 6 times a week, and with the price of everything, I mean, that's significant money after a week, every week. That's significant in a month's time. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there. I think being honest, and this helps you to be honest, is a big part of it. Is a big part of it. And being honest about your money. I'm sure you got a lot to say about that, but being honest about your money, whether you have more than you think or less than you think, knowing where you are. So that's important. So
my,
that was tracking your expenses. Lydia just provided you with a great example of tracking your expenses, the importance of it, and why you should be doing it. And hopefully, we can get people to actually start to think along these lines and actually do it. You'll
yeah,
find that you'll be in a lot better position.
for sure. It might seem tedious at first, and it is work at first. But once you write it all down, it's like if you were in a boat that was sinking, wouldn't you want to plug the holes? This is your financial boat. So in order to know where the holes are, we really got to go through it and find those holes so we can plug them and we can stay afloat financially and thrive and get to our destination. So now we're going to move on to determining your disposable income. Now, disposable income is defined as what you have left over after you deduct all of your expenses. It just means what you have left over that someone doesn't already have claim to. So Mr. Bill doesn't have claim to it. It is considered disposable income, or what you have left over. It's a real simple formula. Dale has it up right there. You take your total net income. I wish we could play with the gross, but we can't. Uncle Sam gets his fingers in it before we get it. Okay. So we have to play with the net. That's what we are actually able to touch. So we write down all of our regular income sources that we have, our job, if we have child support sources, if we have just regular outside income, that's a regular steady income that we receive, we can write that down and include that. And then we're going to subtract all of our total monthly expenses. So that's why that tracking is so important, so that okay, this is priority, what I need, what has to happen. Those needs: food, clothing, shelter, transportation. Everything else is adjustable. Okay. So this worksheet talks about comparing your income with your expenses and determining if you're living within your means. So you have a space on this information. Write down what your total net income is. Write down your monthly expenses and then subtract. So once you do that calculation, if your income is more than your expenses, you have disposable income. Now, how are you going to use it? Are you going to put that towards more debt? Are you going to save it? Are you going to put it away for retirement? What is then your strategy? Because now you have money that you can tell it where to go. Nobody has claim to it. But now you are in control of that. Okay, but if your expenses are more than your income, think about ways, when we looked at all those categories we were spending money in, think about how you can reduce some of those expenses. So a couple of tips. One, if you have insurance through anybody, put your insurance agent to work and have them to do a review for you. and see if they can lower your insurance premium. See if there's anything out there that can lower your insurance premium. If you're one who is still paying for cable, make sure you check. One thing about cable, it'll tick up every few months or so. You'll see a new charge, a new charge. You started paying $50. Now it's 55, then it's 60. Next thing you know, it's $125. And you're wondering, how did I get from $50 to 125? But it was small little increments over time. Your promotion ran out or whatever. Just stay on track, stay up with all those things. Buying in bulk is a way. If you have a family that you're feeding, buying in bulk is a way that you can cut some of those expenses. Just reducing some of the things. Think about how much time you really get to watch TV and how much of that is really relevant. And can you, even if it's temporarily, can you do without it for a moment until that financial hole is plugged in your boat? So that is the determining your disposable income and what that conversation looks like.
Determining your disposable income. So the first step was tracking your expenses, understanding what your expenses are. Your income, most of the time, you're not going to have 30 streams of income. So you're going to have 1 or 2, maybe 3 or 4 at the most. So you know what those are. So we're saying total net income, not what you gross in your paycheck. You see that bigger number. It's the net number, what you actually can go to the bank in cash. It's a smaller number. That's what we're working with. So we're looking at what your total net income is, minus your expenses. So if you've got $1,000 in income and $700 in expenses, you have disposable income of $300. But that's why it's really important to be honest about your expenses, because you might not, if you're not being totally honest, you think you have $300 of disposable income, but you're really negative. And it proves out month after month when you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Are you underwater or not? If you're underwater, you got some other issues to deal with. If you're not, then this is how you can move forward. So either way, you want to get to where you're not. So one of the things I was listening to, they were talking about the streaming services. You named all the list of these streaming services, and there are probably hundreds, probably more than that, things that we pay for on a monthly basis. The good thing about the streaming services is to know what shows you're watching on what streaming service. And when that show is not on, don't pay for it for the whole year. Pay for it, watch your shows, and then unsubscribe from that one. You can always come back. You can, and if you look at your TV shows or the things that movies, whatever you watch, it's a lot of it is very seasonal. So like for me, I have Showtime, which I really just like a couple of shows. And since I've heard that when I'm done with these couple of shows, I'm going to go ahead and cut it and maybe pick up something else if I want to, that'll take the place of that. And if you kind of look at your schedule, what you watch, what you have the services for, you'll see that probably maybe a couple of months out of the year, you really actually use that. So that's a way to cut your budget as well.
That was a good point. And another quick thing I did want to add, and also I want to share the power of the side hustle. Every person, every human being was created with a God-given gift that somebody else is willing to pay for. So think about the things you like. Probably, there's probably some money generation in there somewhere. So we'll move on into your financial priorities. What are your financial priorities? So after you determine where you stand financially, it's time to establish some goals, okay? So the best place to start is to review your priorities. That's what matters to you. So maybe you want a new refrigerator. Maybe you want to save for college, finance a car, or put a down payment towards a home. So Dale has this, the next slide up, and we can look at what we have here in section A will kind of help us set some financial priorities. So when we think about how we would prioritize our money, think about if you just won Say it was a community give day and someone just gave you, as a citizen of your community, $100,000. How are you going to spend that $100,000? Thinking about how you would spend a cool 100 G's if you had it really sets down for you the framework of, I think this is important. I think that my business, you know, giving to me is important. Home repairs, that's important to me, doing a little something for myself. That's important to me. So now you have an idea about your priorities and how you would set that up. So if we think about that flip side, if you just lost your job and you need to make spending cuts in your day-to-day budget, what would you cut if you just suddenly lost your job? What's gone? So now we know those things aren't a priority. Now that we know, we have that idea about what they are, you have a clear vision. You can write down your financial priorities and list them on a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest priority, 5 being the highest priority. Okay. And so you list them and then you rank them, and then why are you ranking them that way? Because if you don't know the why behind the thing, it's hard to really get behind it.
If you don't really understand why this is a priority for you, a financial priority, then it's easy to ignore it, abandon it, not follow through, not really, because you don't have a passion or real understanding in yourself as to why that's important.
Your why could be, okay, I just want to give back to the community, or your why could be, I want to leave a legacy for my children, or whatever why is that's what's going to keep the glue together when it comes. You can plug that boat, but if you don't have a good why, you don't have a ceiling around it. So that when it comes to putting all these things down on paper and really, really working through, very honestly working through your finances, but it's all about being financially successful.
It's a little bit of work. It's not that much work. I mean, but it is a little bit of work, but it's going to pay off. It will pay off. It'll give, at the very least, it'll give you that what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that's the least you'll get out of it. And if you're slightly motivated going through this process, understanding what your priorities are, ranking them, and your why, your reason that's a priority, then that should hopefully that would keep people motivated as to why they're doing what they're doing, to do the little bit of work that it takes to set it up.
Once you get it set, you're set. You've already done the hard part in the front. Now that you have it set, you have a system in place. It's really okay. Let me just peep it, make sure everything's doing what it's supposed to do. My money's right. Everything's paid. Yep. Everything. I got my savings. Yep. Check. It's basically check. Yeah. In the beginning, I would say that the hardest part about putting it all together is going to be the frustration you feel when you see what you spent. That could be, and I'm telling you, it's a moment that's make you want to throw your pen across the room. But once you get past that initial frustration, that will increase your why to continue on in this process. Now that we've looked at our priorities, our disposable income, we looked at where we were financially. Now let's start setting some goals, right? SMART goal is specific, it's measurable, it's attainable, relevant, time bound. So let's break those down. Being specific, like giving as much detail as possible. So you can say, I want to go on vacation, right? Where do you want to go? When do you want to go? How much do you need? Once you know where you want to go, then you can start looking at, okay, this is this area. This is a car. This is what it's going to cost. If I need to fly, this is what the flight is. Get all that together. Once you put a time on it, then you'll know, okay, I need to go by this time here. How much do I need to stack away every week or every 2 weeks until I reach that goal? This is so freeing, y'all, to know that you can do what you want to do as long as you plan for it. You can set your goal and for if it's getting out of debt, write all them debts down. You can write them down, smallest to biggest. We'll talk about that in credit a little more, but just so you know, just in perspective to what our financial lives look like, write them down. I want to be out of debt by this date, and write down all that you have and what you need to stack away or pay, how much extra you need to pay to get out that debt. So it's freeing. So
Goals, SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. That's what makes a goal.
Mhm.
I tell people all the time, write it down. I
Yes.
mean, it's no good in your head. It's just, it could disappear. It could go anywhere. It goes to the back of the mind. But if you write it down and it's something that you look at, then that'll help keep you on task as well. And being specific. Yeah, being specific. I want this in this time. This is what it's going to take. Be detailed. Don't just say I want to go on vacation. Measurable. Can you actually measure it?
Mhm.
Right? What does it say? If you don't measure your goal, you won't know whether you've achieved it.
Mm.
It's that it's attainable. That is something possible, even possible. Relevant. Is the goal even worthwhile? Is it a worthy goal to have? Will it help you meet your financial goals? Time bound. It's got to have a definite date, or at least, a general date. I mean, like the month of May.
Right.
You got to set some kind of date that it can't just go on and on forever because it will be lost and you won't achieve it and you'll be on to the next. So if you want to take a vacation and you want to go to Tahiti,
Mhm.
one of the things I've seen techniques used is, hey, get a picture of Tahiti, whether
Yes.
from the internet or from a magazine of Tahiti, not just any island, but of Tahiti.
Yes.
And you post that somewhere where you're going to see it, in your bedroom, in the bathroom, on the refrigerator, in your office, wherever it is. And that'll help remind you of your goal.
Mm.
And it'll keep you inspired to do what is necessary to accomplish that goal. If you don't have a goal, that's a clear, specific goal. It's measurable, it's attainable, it makes sense, it's relevant, and it has a definite due date.
Mhm.
That really helps people to stay focused and stay on task with their money, financial, banking priorities.
As of 2019, I don't know what the more recent it would be because I'm sure it's different now. I'm sure the number is just more skewed now. But in 2019 study from Price Waterhouse, 50% of Americans had less than $400 in the savings account.
And that was pre-pandemic.
That was pre-pandemic.
Mhm.
Think about really if you break down $400, if you made $400 a goal, that is $8 a week. $8. That's the $1.25 store.
Right. Stop going there. You got your $400.
That is not a paparazzi jewelry.
Right.
Free little snacks from the dollar store. Like that
Hmm.
is $8 a week could get you for. So say your tire blow out
Hmm.
and you're not going to the cash advance. You're not going, robbing Peter to pay Paul. You literally say you're prepared for those kind of things. So having an emergency fund is a good goal. So you want to create your short term and your long term goals. Your short term is in the next 6 months to 12 months. And then your long term goals are anything a year and out. Okay. So short term, 6 months, $500. What I gotta do to get $500 months? Or maybe it's $200 in 6 months. Whatever your goal is in 6 months, set it right now. Whatever your goals are, set them. Set them. Having it written down, having it in front of you, help make better decisions. And so, Dale, that covers our determining where you are in your finances.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you so much for that. This has been some really good information. If you want to get serious about your money, your financial situation, we're providing this a lot of good information to help motivate people to start setting those goals. First, track your expenses. Know what your bills are. Know what your expenses are. Even the things that you said, forget about it. It's still probably out there on a credit report or something like that. So tracking your expenses, understanding your money situation. Do you have disposable income? If you do, how much is it? And what do you want to do with it? By setting those financial priorities, setting your SMART goals, getting those SMART goals. I love that. And this gets you into like kind of like thinking about what are those goals, what are those priorities, and kind of looking at them in a short term and a long term way, writing them down, and just making sure that you're revisiting them weekly. Doing it regularly helps you to stay on track. Day to spend, the 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes just going through and looking at my situation and looking at ways that I can improve it and see things that the prices of things have changed, so I have to adjust accordingly. So I want to say thank you to Miss Lydia Faleye of Truist for taking the time out. This is part two of our series, and we have about 5 or 6 parts to this series. So we welcome you and encourage you to come back for our next installment of Bank on Your Cess, Banking and Budgeting Basics. Thank you, Lydia.
Thank you, Dale. It's a pleasure.